One last A tier level to cover before we get to drop down into alternate rundown 4's B tier missions, and this one is a little bit of a special one. The original R4A3 was actually GTFO's first ever extension level, along with R4B3, C3, and E1. This started a trend where the next few rundowns would be given some extra extension levels for the community to play while we waited for the next big rundown to drop. But you probably didn't come here for a history lesson, now did you? Rather, you came here for a level guide. So, let's get right into it. Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the alternate R4A3 level guide. Just like always, we're starting off with your loadout, and this time around, I recommend you bring with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, and 2 close to mid-range sentries, so burst and or shotgun sentries. So when it comes to bio tracker, I'm recommending this because one of your optional objectives will require you to go through multiple zones covered in pitch black darkness while dealing with a lot of enemies, both smalls and bigs, as well as multiple scouts. And the other optional objective requires you to deal with scouts, smalls, and bigs in well-lit zones, but you're going to have an error alarm going on the entire time that will just be continuously spawning in enemies every so often. When it comes to mine deployer, we're going to be utilizing this for basically every single one of the alarm doors in this level. There will be doors we can shut and mine and maybe even seafoam with seafoam grenades or trip mines, as there are a pretty decent amount of them in this level. That, and if we're going for the overall objective, there is a blood door we're going to have to deal with, so having a mine or 2 or maybe even 3 for it can help out quite a bit. And last but not least, when it comes to sentries, there are going to be a few alarms in this level where we can't really utilize mines and seafoam properly, so we want to have that extra firepower to make those alarms a little bit easier for us. And due to the design of this level, I find close to mid-range sentries work the best. So a burst sentry, it's pretty good. It doesn't really excel at anything, but there's very few situations where the burst sentry does not help out all that much. And the shotgun sentry, with all the recent buffs it's been getting, it's in a pretty good spot if you know how to position it properly, which all you really need to do is just make sure you don't place it out in the open. If you're going to try funnel enemies in through a specific door during an alarm, it's good to have it maybe around the corner from the door. That way, as enemies are rounding into the room and they go through the door itself, they'll be there in the line of fire of the sentry, and it's not going to try to shoot at them from 20 or 30 meters away. So when you use a shotgun sentry, if you do decide to take 1 or 2 of them into this level, just make sure that wherever you place it, it's not going to be trying to snipe enemies from really far away. Otherwise, it will go through its ammo really quickly and it will be a bit wasteful. And now that you have an idea of what to bring in with you, let's drop down to the level and get started. Dropping down into the level, you'll see that your main objective is to clear a path to Zone 30, and you and your team are going to be starting off inside Zone 27, so not too terribly far away. And inside this zone, aside from the typical enemy and resources you can expect to see, there's also going to be your very first bulkhead door control, as well as the doors to your main and secondary objectives. However, there is not a bulkhead key in this zone, so after you finish up everything in here, you're going to want to head over to the northern side of the zone, where you'll be able to find a security door to Zone 28. This door is just simply a full team scan, and inside the zone, there will be a few enemies, both smalls and bigs, as well as a single scout patrolling about, as well as more resources, and of course, your very first bulkhead key. So go throughout here, deal with every single one of the enemies, and keep an eye out for those boxes of lockers. Also look around for some seafoam grenades and trip mines, as there usually are a few inside zones 27 and 28, and these can help out later. And once you got everything you need from in here, backtrack into zone 27, head over to the eastern side where you'll be able to find that bulkhead door control, plug the key in, and you'll have access to the full team scans for your main and secondary objective. And even though it's pretty early on in the video, we are already going to be splitting people up. Because if you are somebody who is only interested in watching the main objective portion of this video and none of the optional stuff, you're going to want to jump to the time that you see on screen. There we'll talk about Zone 29 and so forth and how to complete the rest of the level. Everybody else though, we're going to be doing the secondary scan and heading over to the western side of the zone where we'll find the bulkhead door to Zone 145. Which, when it comes to the bulkhead door to Zone 145, this is just an open door, no scan or anything tied to it, so you can head right on in pretty easily. And upon entering into the zone, you'll see that your secondary objective is to collect 5 OSIPs. There's actually a total of 7 of them, and they will be spread throughout Zone 145, 146, and 147. So inside Zone 145, you're going to want to look around, but be careful, as this entire zone is covered in pitch black darkness. There will be a fair amount of enemies, both smalls and bigs, as well as 3 scouts spread throughout it. But you're going to make your way through, dealing with the enemies, looking out for any OSIPs, as there will be a few of them in here, and also looking out for your second bulkhead key, as that will always be somewhere inside the zone, as well as 2 colored key cards. You technically only need 1 of these in particular, but if you happen to come across both of them, you might as well grab them. It doesn't weigh you down or anything like that. But as you make your way through, you will be able to find a terminal pretty early on in the zone, and I would recommend that when you find it, use it to list how many OSIPs are in zone 145, 146, and 147. Because when it comes to zone 146 and 147, you only have to go into one of those two zones to get the last of the OSIPs you need to complete the objective. However, it is not a perfect amount where you could just head into either one of the two zones and be fine. In most of my runs, I've noticed that you have to head into one of those two in particular in order to get the last of the ones you need. If you head into the incorrect one, you will be one or maybe even two OSIPs short, which means that you then have to go into the other one. So once you know which one of the two zones you're heading to and you've gotten everything from inside zone 145 you need, you're going to make your way to the southwest corner of it, where you'll be able to find a big room, and in there will be the security doors to zone 146 and 147. Go up to the security door that you need to, plug in the key card, and as I said earlier, there will be an alarm tied to it, specifically a class 4 alarm, so we are going to want to set up some defenses. As you can see with the map overlay, it doesn't matter which one of the two doors you're doing, this is what you've got in store for you. There are two different locations enemies could spawn from, and a few different doors you could shut to buy yourself some extra time. And this door right here that leads directly into your room, you're going to want to make sure this door is shut, mined, and if you have a C-foam grenade, C-foam it, or if you have no grenades but you have a trip mine, you could do sort of what you can see me doing in the background footage. There's a cheeky little barrel you could place a trip mine on facing towards the door, and then if you time it right, you could shut the door, shoot the trip mine right as it's about to fully shut, and that would cause the trip mine to detonate and fully reinforce the door. And then when it comes to your sentries, you could just place them somewhere near that door facing towards it on the inside of your room, of course. That way it starts shooting at enemies once they do break it down and get in. Once you got everything set up how you want to, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once you're finished with this alarm, kill the last of the enemies, pack up your sentries, and head into whichever zone you're going into. When it comes to zone 146 and 147, they are very similar to each other. It will be pitch black darkness once again. There will be some enemies, both smalls and bigs. There will be a single scout in both of these zones. And of course, there'll be more resources for you to collect, as well as the last few OSIPs that you need. So go throughout the zone, take care of all that, and once you have everything you need and you have all 5 of the OSIPs that you need for your objective, it will be completed, and all that's left for you to do is backtrack out of the sector, go back into zone 27, go to the door control, plug your key into it, and then you can do the full team scan for the main objective, which will unlock the security door to zone 29. We can then head over to the far eastern side of the zone, where we will be able to find it. When it comes to the security door to zone 29, you're going to have to deal with a class 3 alarm before you can open it up. And as you can see with the map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for enemies and a few different doors we can mess around with. So I recommend that these two doors here, you shut them and place a mine on each of them, as you should have plenty of mines at this point in the level. And then when it comes to the two doors that lead directly into your room, the northern one, shut it, but do not mine it or C-foam it, because we're going to be leaving this southern door open to ensure all the enemies funnel in through here during the alarm. As for sentries, we just place them somewhere near the open door to deal with enemies as they are approaching it or getting into the room, and we should be good. Get the setup how you need to, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, and once everything is finished, go out, pack up both of your sentries, and grab any mines that might not have detonated. And then if you're going for the overload objective in this level, make sure both of the doors that lead directly into your room are left open, as we want to preserve these for a later point. Once you take care of all that, you can open up the door and head into zone 29. In there will be more enemies, both smalls and bigs, as well as your third bulkhead key somewhere, as well as the bulkhead door control and doors to your main and overload objectives. So go throughout the room, clear all the enemies, get the bulkhead key, but before you plug it in, you and your team should make a decision here now. Are you planning on going up north into zone 31? Because that security door is just simply a full team scan, and inside are a pretty fair amount of resources. However, if we open up that security door, we are going to open up a new spawn location for enemies for 2 upcoming alarms. One for the main objective and one for the overload. So if you have plenty of resources right now and you don't think you need to head up there, just simply skip it for the time being. But if you feel like you do need to go up there because you ran a little bit low on ammunition or health or whatever it might be, you can do the full team scan, head in, clear out the enemies, and look around for all those resources and resupply. The thing is though, what I recommend you do upon leaving that zone, if you're going for the overall objective, is do the same thing we did with those western doors. Leave the 2 doors that are in the first room of that optional resource zone open, that way we can preserve them for an upcoming alarm and we don't have to worry about them getting broken down too early. If you're just simply going for the main objective though, you could shut both of those doors and mine them right here and now. And at this point, we need to split up one more time because we have an overall objective to complete, but there's also some of you who might only be interested in the main objective portion of this guide. So if you don't care to see anything about the overall objective, jump to the timestamp you see on screen. There we will talk about the final security door to Zone 30, the alarm tied to it, how to set up for it, and then how to survive extraction. For those of us who want to do the overall objective though, we're going to be plugging our bulkhead key into the door control, doing that scan, and then heading down south to the overall bulkhead door to Zone 195. Now, this security door is going to have an error alarm tied to it, and this error alarm will spawn in 3 regular strikers or shooters roughly every 50 seconds. So just like we did back in R4A2, we're going to be dividing the team up a little bit. Some people are going to be staying outside and waiting for the error alarm enemies to get to them, as they can only spawn from the west or from the north. As for the people who are not defending, you're heading into Zone 195 and taking care of the sleeping enemies in there, as well as the 2 scouts that will always be patrolling about. And then your teammates, they just simply come in with you once you have taken care of everything in there. Or if you mess up and you wake up one or even both of the scouts, the defenders could just quickly fall back into the room, place down the sentries facing towards the bulkhead door, and then you can just hold out in there. As Zone 195 is just one big room, so anything that spawns in has to come from the north. Once you take care of the entirety of the zone though, you could progress further into it. Which, by the way, something I did not mention quite yet, is that upon entering into Zone 195, you'll see that your overall objective is to find a specific terminal and put a command into it. And that terminal is always going to be located at the far back end of Zone 197. So once you take care of everything inside Zone 195, you can head to the southern end where you'll find a security door to Zone 196. Now this security door is going to be a blood door, but it also has a Class 4 alarm tied to it. So let's take a look at a map overlay. As you can see, there are 2 possible spawn locations for enemies during this alarm, one to the west and one to the north, although that northern spawn location does not exist if you did not actually open it up. Either way though, it doesn't really make much of a difference because there isn't a single door we can potentially shut, mine, or seafoam. So we're just going to position both of our sentries near that bulkhead door into the room, and those should give us plenty of cover. So once the sentries are set up and we're good to go, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans, biotrack a person, tag enemies as often as you can, that way nothing sneaks up on the team. And once every single one of the sets of scans have been finished, you can deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive, grab the sentries, and then place 1 or 2 mines on the blood door, open it up, maybe place your sentries down facing towards it as well if you want some extra cover fire, and get to work on the blood door itself. Once all the enemies from the blood door are dead, you and the entire team can head into Zone 196. Which Zone 196 isn't really all that big. I believe it only consists of 3 small rooms, so you don't really need to split up. You can all just work together, clearing out the rooms, dealing with the enemies, and grabbing resources and making your way through. And as you get to the back end of it, you'll find a security door to Zone 197. This security door just simply has a full team scan tied to it, so do the full team scan, but do not open it up until you hear an error alarm wave spawn in. Once they do spawn in, have 1 or 2 people go out to deal with them while the other people open up the door and head into Zone 197. Zone 197 itself consists of 3 fairly big rooms, and in these rooms will be a fair amount of enemies, both smalls and bigs, as well as another scout patrolling about. So whoever's going ahead into the zone, try to deal with stuff as quickly as you can, as the air wave could potentially spawn in front of you and wake up those enemies and maybe even the scout. Once you've taken care of everything inside Zone 197 and all the enemies are dead, you can look around a little bit, grab resources and whatnot, as well as your 4th and final bulkhead key, which will always be inside the zone. And as I mentioned earlier, at the far western back end of it, you'll be able to find that terminal. So you're going to head over there, put the command to the terminal, and that will cause a full team scan to appear. And once you finish that full team scan, your overall objective is completed. However, there is just a little bit more to it, because shortly after you finish that scan, a wave of approximately 6 giant strikers or hybrids will spawn in. So you can either wait in the room and maybe shut the door and mine it and let them come to you, or if you want, you can just simply rush out there, meet them head on, and just blast your way through all the giants and hybrids. And once you have taken care of the overall objective and you have the bulkhead key, head back into Zone 29, plug that into the door control, do the full team scan to your main objective, and that will unlock the security door to Zone 31. And at this point, the only thing left to do is actually deal with the alarm that's tied to it, since there will be a Class 4 alarm tied to that security door. So as you can see with the map overlay, there are a few different spawn locations for enemies, although this can change depending on how you've been playing up to this point. If you're only going for the main objective and you did not open up the resource zone, the only spawn location is over to the west. However, if you did open up that optional resource zone, you've got another 2 spawn locations up there, and if you went for the overall objective, there is 1 spawn location way down to the south. Now, when it comes to the southern spawn, there are no doors you could shut or mine or anything like that, so I recommend that you place 1 of your sentries facing towards it. When it comes to the western and the northern spawns though, there are some doors that you could utilize since you saved them earlier. So these 2 western doors and these 2 northern doors, mine them, and then you could just place your other sentry facing either towards the west or to the north, but work on the scans, deal with the enemies, and once you finish this alarm, you can quickly pack up your sentries, open up the security door to zone 30, and walk right on in. In there will be your extraction scan at the back end of the room, but be warned that as soon as you step into the room, a proper extraction alarm is going to initiate. So hop onto the scan as quickly as you can, plop down both of your sentries, maybe place some mines if you do have a few extra ones left over, and then get ready to defend for a bit, because this extraction alarm will take quite a while to finish. But once you get that scan all the way up to 100%, you are done and you have completed alternate R4A3. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R4A3 is an incredibly short level when you go for only the main objective. Clear out 3 zones, deal with 2 alarms, and hold out for a bit on extraction, and you're done. Throw in the optional objectives though, and you have a bit more you'll have to take care of. Back in the original R4, I remember fearing the end of this level quite a bit, as those giants and hybrids from Overlord's terminal scan would always give me a lot of trouble. Plenty of my old runs back then ended right then and there just because of them. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you want to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, I hope fog isn't too much of an issue for you, as the next few levels will have an abundance of it, and hopefully, I'll see you all in the next video.